So you mentioned earlier about the younger players not getting paid barely anything at the beginning of their contract. And obviously the minor league salaries are another big problem that baseball has had for quite a while. So this trend that we're seeing, Wander Franco, the Braves did it with Acuna and Albies, the White Sox did it with Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert. Do you think that's going to become the norm where teams, especially lower market teams, are going to do that? And if so, how much do you think that could balance the power between the teams like the Dodgers that love to spend money and then the other extreme love, a team like the Rays?
What you got to remember is when the Rays give Wander Franco that deal, it's not to do Wander Franco a favor. It's to help themselves and basically feel like they're going to get him for cheaper than he's worth. That's why they do it. And it's to afford him later. And it's also to make him more tradable later. So when he does get up into those other years where he's making 12, 15, $16 million a year, but he's worth $22 million a year, then all of a sudden you either have a good bargain or you've got a great player to trade to get another guy who's making the minimum, and that's how you just kind of start over. So I think that those big long-term contracts are not necessarily an indication that the younger players are getting some great deal, because still the teams are doing it, to get themselves a cheaper player in the long run, basically.
Again, we are talking to Southern California News Group Angels beat writer Jeff Fletcher. Last question for me, Jeff. A lot of people are taking shots at Brian Cashman because before the lockout, he didn't make any moves, and the Yankees are the Yankees, and they're a big market team, and they didn't put out, you see the Mets getting Max Scherzer, you see all the moves that the Mets made with Marte and all the other guys that they brought in, and Cohen spent a little bit more than $700-800 million in the last 2 off seasons. When you look at that, and you look at here at New York sports, are you surprised that Brian Cashman hasn't opened the Yankees' pockets and Hal Steinbrenner has not opened up the Yankees' pockets like his father did?
Well, they still seem to spend a lot of money if you look at any other team. I mean, I know the Angels really wanted Garrett Cole, but the Yankees gave him $324 million. Right. So that seems like a lot of money to me. And, I think that you can get kind of spoiled and just expect that you should get everybody because you're the Yankees, but it doesn't work that way. It's hard. And I also don't believe that you really can just buy your way to winning, because the guys who are free agents are old. That's how they get to be free agents. And there's a big gamble with those guys. So you're a lot better off investing in your farm system and bringing the guys up, that can help you win, from your farm system. I think that the Dodgers and Rays, I want to say, in the World Series last year, maybe all but one of the starting pitchers who pitched for those two teams were homegrown guys. So that's the kind of thing that happens. It's a better way to have sustained winning than to just think you can go out and buy everybody on the free agent market, because those guys are overpaid and old and risky.
Are you listening to this, Tyler? If you're not listening to the show, I wish you were here, because you should be listening to this, because a guy that has and makes sense over here. A 37-year-old, 38-year-old player, as good as Max Scherzer is, $43 million, 3-year extension, the biggest contract in Major League history. I understand he's never been hurt a significant amount, but to me, a crazy contract to give him, especially with the Mets' woes and with the contracts they've given players and the significant injuries they've been dealing with year in and year out. So I absolutely agree with you, Jeff.
So my last question is, with this, what do you think is a lot of the end results that'll come with this CBA? We're seeing a potential for rule changes, the NLDH, potentially expanded playoff teams. So that's one. And also, if you were to change something that maybe you would want to see change in the game, what would it be and why?
I think that I think we're definitely going to see DH in the NL. I think we're definitely going to see expanded playoffs. I think what I would like to see is a system where you get extra draft picks if you have a 500 record and miss the playoffs. So basically there's some incentive for the middle teams. If you have like a 72 win roster, and there's some incentive for you to get to, 81, even if you can't get all the way to 91 to make the playoffs. If you can get to 81 and get an extra draft pick, then that's going to help you even quicker. And that way that's going to be better for the players if teams are trying to get from 72 to 81 than thinking, oh, we're at 72, we're better off at 52, so we can get the number 1 pick. So I'd like to see that to kind of give teams a little more incentive to have all different rungs on the ladder and not just be all or nothing to, either we're a World Series team or let's try to have the number 1 pick. I'd like to see there's some incentive for teams to take incremental steps in between.
If that system ends up happening in place, the 2016 through 18 Cardinals would have been loaded with draft picks. They were the first team out 3 years in a row in the National League.
That's actually really, really
The Angels
cool.
have been there too a few times.
Yeah.
That's where the Angels have been a lot.
Come on, that's why Jeff is bringing it up. He's trying to help the Angels out. It wouldn't help the Yankees out because they're always in the playoffs, so it doesn't really matter. So it's
I guess the Yankees
it doesn't
don't have
matter for
losing records.
The Angels don't need the Angels don't need the motivation though, because they are already trying to get to that level. They're just not doing it very well. But it's the other teams, that are kind of fringy tanking teams that need to have some inspiration to try to get to 81.
It's very interesting, actually, a really cool thought for baseball. And Rob Manfred, as much as I love baseball, Rob Manfred has been the worst commissioner in professional sports, and it takes a lot to say something like that because Roger Goodell has not been the best, let's be honest. And then we have, who would have thought that Gary Bettman would be the best commissioner in professional sports, because I used to like Adam Silver, but he lets LeBron James run the show. He lets the players run the show. So how could you like a sport that the commissioner is like taking a step down and letting the players run the commission and everything that's going on in the league? So I'm not a big fan of Adam Silver and Roger Goodell. Everybody knows what I think about Roger Goodell if you listen to this show.
Watch LeBron become the next NBA commissioner.
And Rob Manfred, come on, man. To me, in 2024, when his contract's up, please, Theo Epstein, please take this job. Or the owners, are you listening to me? Let this man take over baseball. He has changed the game. You saw what he did with the Cubs. You've seen what he's done with the Red Sox. I think he would be the perfect fit to put in as the commissioner of baseball. I think he's a smart man, and he knows the game so very well. I think it would be perfect for baseball. That's just my opinion. So I don't know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts to that before we let you go?
I don't know. I think it's a tough job to be the commissioner. And I think mainly his job is to make money for the owners who are his bosses. And he seems to have done that pretty well. So I think that he's probably not going anywhere.
Jeff, you could have made money for baseball. Come on. How hard is it to sit in a seat and talk about TV deals and universal deals for apparel and all the other stuff? I don't have a college education for that, or he probably doesn't either, but I could do it too. Okay, if you want me to jump into the seat of commissioner, I'll hire the right people, and we can market the hell out of them MLB, and I could bring in money, because that's what Roger Goodell did. It's not, to me, I understand what everybody's going to say, and I know people are going to say it's not as easy as it sounds, but because the game is a multi-billion-dollar organization, baseball is a billion-dollar organization, there are many, many different ways to bring in money, not only for the sports, but for the players and the owners as well. So I understand what you're saying. He's done a good job when it comes to bringing money for the owners. He's ruined the game. I think he's affected the game on some of these stupid rules, the extra innings, man on second rule. It's ruined the game. I mean, I love baseball because baseball was America's pastime. I love the game for what it was. Why change the rules? You want to put the DH in the National League? It makes sense. It protects the pitcher. That's fine. Electronic umpires, stupid. I mean, a man on second base after the eighth or ninth inning, double headers. The second game only goes to 7 innings. It's ridiculous. It's stupid. It ruins the game. So him making no sense on his rules and the debacle of the game. And by the way, the shifting, that is a rule that right now has to be looked at, where there shouldn't be. If you're gonna do this and you're gonna change this, change shifting. Teams cannot shift in the game, because if you want to see more points, you want to see more, changing the baseball, changing the bats, or whatever the heck they do, what we've heard over the last couple of years, which is ridiculous. You heard Rob Manfred say in the playoffs it was different baseballs. I mean, you didn't see that in the 1950s and the 60s, okay? So why is the game changing because Rob Manfred wants to make more runs, more home runs, more power in the game, which everybody wants to see. In football, you want to see more power. So now you can't touch the quarterback. Now you can't do this. You can't touch the wide receiver. The games are changing, and I understand as the years go by, you want to change the different rules to make the game a little bit more interesting for the fan. But for baseball and for me, loving the game for what it is, You can't change these rules when you look at the pastime and what the pastime has brought us, and baseball, and you're going to say, well, shifting's been around forever, which is true. It has been around forever, but it ever since it really heavily came into the league 10 years ago, it's ruined the game. If you just stop shifting, there'll be more runs, more power, and the pull hitters that were so good at what they were doing, they would be as dominant as they were before the shifting came into the league. So that's just my opinion. I'm sure you're probably saying, "Oh, that's a babble," but it's to me, it's ruined the game. The shifting has ruined the game. I understand it's the way you manage these are professional baseball players. They make so much money. If they're shifting on you, pull the ball, bunt the ball. That's what everybody says. I've talked to a lot of coaches and managers, and they all say the same thing. And you know what I say to them? Okay, that could be true. They make millions and millions of dollars, but if baseball is willing to change rules because they want more runs and more power and all these different things to make baseball a little bit more amusing for people to go and watch the games live or watch it on TV, well then don't change the rules. If you're going to change a rule or two, change the shifting, because I think if you stop shifting, there'll be more runs, more power numbers, and they'll be more fun to watch instead of watching, the third baseman play shortstop or second base and the second baseman play outfield. You know what I mean? Am I right or wrong on that?
Let me tell you, the shifts are not the problem with, why the offense is down. It's strikeouts. That's why. Guys strike out too much. If you look at the batting average on ground balls, it's not that different from 20 years ago.
No, I get it.
So, shifts take a few hits away and they give a few hits here and there. And, if the batting average changes 2 points, it's not going to make a difference between your enjoyment of the game. It's strikeouts. That's what the problem is. And, if you put if the shortstop has to stand right behind second base instead of 10 feet to the right of second base, do you think that's going to make a difference? Do you think that's going to change your enjoyment of the game? No, it's not going to make a difference. What's going to make a difference is if every third hitter is not striking out. If they can put the ball in play, which has nothing to do with the shift, that's what's going to change things. And I don't know how you fix that one.
I don't think there should be any changes into the game, except with the DH thing. I think it makes sense. For National League, I know a lot of National League fans don't like it, but it saves the pitcher, protects the pitcher. And I think we've seen a lot of pitchers over the years. Madison Bumgarner get hurt, swinging a bat. We've seen Jacob deGrom swing a bat. That's how Jacob deGrom hurt his shoulder this year. Not throwing the ball, but playing, swinging at the ball. So we've seen a lot of pitchers over the years, that National League pitchers, even American League pitchers. What's his name again from the Yankees? So we were talking about yesterday. The Korean.
Tanaka, yeah.
No, not Tanaka. The other
Chim-Ming Wong.
Chim-Ming Wong. He hurt himself in that National League game. I forget who he was playing.
Yeah, he stole a base. I think it was right at the beginning of the season, too, or something like that.
I don't think he was stealing a base. He tried to run.
Advance the second, yeah.
Advanced the second. He was playing and he was hitting. And ever since that injury, he was a 19-18 win type of pitcher. And he hurt himself. He was never the same pitcher. Never the same pitcher. So I think as much as the National League, and that's been around the National League for such a long time in baseball, I think adding the DH, it makes a little bit more sense to give, and it also helps the National League out because you can protect your players and you can sit out players certain games and really put them in a good position to succeed throughout the 162 games. So what do you think about that, Jeff?
I don't like watching pitchers hit. Sure, it's kind of cool to see a double switch now and then. You go, oh, wow, what a brilliant manager. He made a double switch. That's great. I sure loved coming out to the ballpark to watch that double switch. It's not rocket science. So, plus it's better to have everybody play by the same rules. If you're a National League team and you have a really good player that you'd like to keep, but you can't give him that 7-year contract because you don't have the DH available, but an American League team can, that's not really very fair.
No.
So I'm all for, the DH being in both leagues.
Jeff, tell the fans how they can find you on social media.
Jeff Fletcher OCR on Twitter.
Well, we would love to get you on again as the season happens, hopefully in the
When
next
it
couple
happens,
of
yeah.
when it happens and this lockout strike, whatever they call it, is over, we'd love to get you on spring training and talk a little Angels baseball and your thoughts to some of the acquisitions, because I'm sure the Angels aren't done. The Yankees, I'm sure, aren't done. The Mets aren't done. All these other teams. So we'd love to know your opinion after the Angels are done with their off season. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to have you on very soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.